All right, this is a test of the sounds for the Zoom meeting. It is 6:02 p.m.
like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Bell, will you take roll, please?
Ms. Fowler,
Here.
Mr. Lane,
Here.
Dr. Roberts,
Present.
Ms. D. Jones, Ms. Bowell,
Here.
Ms. S. Jones,
Present.
Ms. Rhodey Collins.
Here.
Ms. Jones is here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to our Spirit of Excellence segment of the board meeting. At our January meeting, we experienced some technical difficulties, so those listening in on the stream were not able to hear this portion of the meeting. So we wanted to make sure to go back and recognize these individuals. The information shared bears repeating, so tonight we are celebrating this big achievement. For the first time ever, St. Louis Public Schools has received top-tier recognition, gold, on the American Heart Association's 2020 Workplace Health Achievement Index. Organizations that receive this recognition have clearly demonstrated to the American Heart Association that they are creating a culture of health and investing in the health of their workforce. St. Louis Public Schools is the only school district in the state to be included on the index at any level. This achievement would not have been made possible without the hard work and planning of our benefits coordinator, Karen Shelton Henry, the district's former on-site wellness coordinator, Nick Collins of United Healthcare, the SLPS Wellness Committee, and staff throughout the district who embrace the health and wellness initiatives presented to them. Congratulations. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 8th, 2020.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Bowell, Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 14th, 2020.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yeah.
Ms. S.
Yes.
Jones, Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 15th, 2020.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Abstain.
Ms. Bowell,
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins.
Yes.
Motion passed.
So if this meeting were not happening during pandemic times, we would have public comment. So I'll read you our statement about public comment at this time. The Board of Education of the City of St. Louis values the opinions of the St. Louis community. Please be respectful and limit remarks to 3 minutes. We encourage speakers to express their concerns and viewpoints in a constructive and healthy manner, and reserve the right to revoke the speaking privileges of speakers who fail to conform to reasonable requirements of decent public decorum. Speakers may not relinquish their time to other speakers. The Board of Education is committed to receiving public comment during the COVID-19 pandemic and the corresponding suspension of in-person public Board of Education meetings. As part of this effort, the board is inviting interested members of the public to submit written comments to the following email address prior to the start of the board meeting. That email address is slpsinfo@slps.org. Subject to the requirements that commenters exercise proper decorum in respect for individual student or employee privacy, the Board of Education will assemble the written comments and make them available for review by the public via a link that will be placed on the district website alongside the link for reviewing rebroadcasts of this board meeting. This procedure for submitting public comments will remain in effect until the Board of Education returns to normal in-person public meetings. Dr. Adams.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, school board's service can seem like a thankless task, yet board members devote countless hours to making critical decisions that benefit the public school students in our communities throughout the state. To honor board members, Governor Parson has designated the week of February 14th through the 20th, 2021 as Missouri School Board Recognition Week. The goal of this week is to increase awareness and understanding of the crucial function an elected Board of Education plays in the success and advancement of our public schools. I know the board has felt that over the last 2 months, especially with tough decisions having to be made relative to consolidation. So in recognition of the board tonight, the Missouri School Board Association has provided a recognition or a certification for all board members that I'll bring to you.
Madison, stop.
There is also one for Mrs. Viles and Mrs. Donna Jones. In addition to that, Mrs. Jones is also going to be receiving a certificate of achievement to certify that she has satisfactorily completed 1 hour of CBM refresher training. The board's role in preventing student sexual abuse that was done on 6/27/2020. Thank you, Mrs. Donna Jones. And lastly, I want to congratulate Mrs. Regina Fowler for the 18.5 hours of MSBA CMB essential training, which is a requirement of the Missouri law for new board members. We commend you for your initiative in undertaking this professional development program. You will obviously have access to all online training for another month if you wish to receive the content. At this point in time, you receive another another certificate as well as a pen. I'd like to thank you for the training that you've done to prepare yourself as a board member. First, I would like to share some calendar reminders for families and staff. This Friday, February 12th, is a professional development day for district employees. There will be no instruction on that day. On Monday, February 15th, the district will be closed for the President Day holiday. I want to make the public aware of that. Lastly, some exciting news to report. Bush Middle School has once again been named the Missouri School of Character by Education Plus. You see there the Bobcat on the screen. The recognition is awarded to schools that have achieved a standard of excellence in the area of character development through their exemplary implementation of Character Plus, 11 principles of effective character education, a framework for the whole school improvement. Additionally, two district schools of only four, there are additionally two district schools of the only four statewide received the designation of honorable mention during the year's evaluation process. Those two schools were Nottingham CAJT and AESM Middle School. Congratulations to these schools, their staffs, students, and parents and community for their hard work in terms of these recognitions. At this point in time, we have three presentations. The first is a financial presentation That will be done by Mrs. Banks, followed by a calendar update, and then a school consolidation update as well. Ms. Banks.
Thank you. Well, good evening. This is our financial update for the month of January, and we'll be having January year-to-date numbers. Our financial objectives promote academic growth, financial stability, and alignment with Transformation Plan 3.0. Today, we will have a COVID update, a summary review of the January year-to-date revenues and expenditures, and consider our financial outlook. The additional $46 million of stimulus funds have been confirmed that will be available to spend through September 2023. They're very similar to the original $10.7 million allocation, with some additions noted for mental health services and supports, summer learning and supplemental after-school programs, and other programs that address learning loss. Again, there were no E-rate funds included in this second allocation. And we do plan to fully utilize the GEARS transportation grant. We have spent approximately $5.6 million, or 52% of the original CARES allocation to date. With the confirmed $46 million of additional funds, we will likely complete the allocation of this $10.7 million this year on additional PPE and student support services. The categories and amounts for the PPE and other services are noted and defined on this slide. We've talked about the tax revenue for quite a while, and January is the biggest tax revenue month. The tax revenues did come in as expected, and we have now received approximately 90% of the projection, which is maybe a little bit above the expectation. However, our desegregation sales tax revenue is a little lower than anticipated, and it seems like it's coming in at about 80 to 85% of projection. Of course, the deseg sales tax revenue is a much smaller percentage of our budget. So those two combined, our sales tax revenue and our property tax revenue will probably offset and will end up where we had projected that we'd be. Our major expenditures for the month, and we've just noted those items that we spent over $100,000 for the month, very similar to some of the other months, with some technology expenditures, some tuition for our contract schools, assessments, general supplies, software, and some large payments to our transportation and food service vendors. These January results are for all funds. We received approximately $149 million in revenue, as noted in red, for the month of January, and $264 million year to date, or 66% of the revenue budget. Receiving the tax revenues in January certainly puts us in a solid position for the rest of the fiscal year. You'll note that the state category is negative, and this is due to an overpayment that the state made in our classroom trust revenues that had to be repaid or offset in another line item. Additional revenues that you'll see are some in the federal category, include some comprehensive 21st century after-school programs, adult education, Perkins, and food service. Here are the January expenditures. We spent approximately $32 million in January, $172 million year-to-date, or almost 43% of the expenditure budget. We received a federal interest credit from the United States Treasury from some of the bonds that really helps to reduce our debt service expense. And you'll note that negative in the long and short-term debt category. We receive these credits twice a year, and I believe we had 5 Prop S bond funds, and 2 of those bond series is where we receive those federal interest credits. Those were our qualified school construction bonds and our qualified zone academy bonds. So of course, if and when we sell a building that we've used some Prop S for, we see the implications of those federal interest credits going forward. As I mentioned, this year is really considered financially stable with the majority of our tax revenues already received and the additional remaining CARES funds from the original allocation. As we look forward to 2022, we are highly focused on the uncertainties surrounding enrollment and the proposed charter funding legislation, both of which can have a significant impact on our budget. And of course, there will be more planning around the best use of the ESSER II funds and the implementation of the consolidation plan and the upgrade plans. I'll take any questions that you may have.
I just have a couple questions. One, E-rate money is for information technology, right?
Could you repeat that, please?
Is the E-rate money for information technology?
Yes.
Okay, so the second round of federal dollars, COVID dollars, doesn't include E-rate. So will we be able to fulfill our expansion of Wi-Fi without any money allocated to E-rate dollars?
Well, I know that there is a time frame when we actually submit those requests to the E-rate funding. And at this point, we have several, over $1 million in E-rate funding that's included in this year's budget, where we will receive some reimbursements for those funds that we spend. And as Ms. Benoit has spoken to previously, we pay approximately 10% and we receive funding for about 90%.
Okay, so we should be able to get done then with the expansion.
Yes.
Okay, then the other question I have regarding purchase service and long-term, short-term debt, those categories seem to be lower in terms of percent spent. Is that timing, or do we expect some savings in those areas in the expenditures?
Well, that category specifically is specifically for our bonds, for the principal and interest payments. And those generally only happen infrequently, I think twice a year.
Okay.
So generally we will use all of those funds.
Okay. And what about purchase services? Will we're at 27.6% of that category. Is that timing, or will there be savings there?
There could possibly be some savings there, although in that category, we generally spend a large percentage at the end of the year. So it is somewhat of a lagging category.
Thank you.
I have a question, please. Hello?
Yes, Ms. Jones, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, my question is around, you talked about the $49 million that came in January, and you talked about contract schools. I'd like to know, how many contract schools do we currently have, and how many students are we currently servicing through those contract schools?
So we have two vendors that are part of our special needs community. I think the numbers, and I talked to you yesterday. I have it. When I get to the podium, I'll tell you exactly what the number.
We currently have 4 contract schools, and the number of students fluctuates somewhat, but we have really reduced the number of students that are in those contract schools when we opened up our therapeutic or Madison school. Again, I'm not aware of the exact number at this point. We do have those numbers, so we can provide those as soon as I get back to my computer.
Okay, and I have a question in regards to I want to understand what Zone Academy bonds are.
Yes, the qualified zone academy bonds that I referenced were part of the Proposition S bonds that were issued back in 2010. It was 155 million. Well, those bonds were made up of several different series of bonds. So the Zone Academy bonds were one of the categories that were eligible for federal interest credit. So those were just some of the bonds that we used to fund some of the campaign that we had back 2009, 10, 11, 12 period. And now we're just paying off those bonds, the principal and interest.
And the number of students in the contracted services is 48 students.
And how much does it cost us? I don't.
It cost us $129 a student and $162 a student, depending upon the vendor. So a total of about $291 per student.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to present to the public and to the board the 2021-22 school year calendar recommendations. As you know, the calendar is presented to the public, and then we will have it posted tomorrow for feedback. We take 2 weeks of feedback, and then at that point in time, bring it back to the board in March. This is a very different year for the calendar because of what has occurred with the pandemic. And so this is our best guess in terms of when school is going to start. And I'll kind of talk about that just a little bit. The purpose, as I said before, is to propose key dates for the 2021-22 school calendar, to compare the 2021 calendar to the 21-22 calendar, and to obtain approval for the calendar, which will be taking place, as I indicated before, at the March board meeting. The start of the school year for 10-month employees will be August the 17th. Last year it was, it was August the 17th this year, although we made some adjustments because of the pandemic. Next year we're looking at August the 9th. Start of the school year, last year we delayed it by 1 week to the 31st because of the pandemic. At this point in time, because of the governor's directives 2 years ago, we cannot start school any earlier than August the 23rd. And so we're looking to start school as early as possible, understanding and knowing that kids have been not in a regular school environment for the last year. The last day of winter break will be January the 2nd, compared to January the 3rd this year. The length of the winter break last year was 10 work days, 14 calendar days. That will reduce to 8 work days and 12 calendar days. That's a result of the Christmas Day and the New Year's Day falling later in the week. And as a result, there will be 2 days that kids will be coming to school. And last year, because they fell in the middle of the week, that did not occur. School would resume from winter break on the, last year it was on the 4th. This year it will be on the 3rd. School resumes from winter break for students on the 4th, as it was last year on the 4th as well. We are counting as January 30 Records Day for employees to do the records because of the time of the calendar and students coming back on the 4th. The last day for students will be this year, June 3rd, unless we make some adjustments, and that is highly possible. I may be coming back to the board to possibly make some adjustments depending upon what occurs over the next 3 months. But the last day for students will be the 26th, and the last day for employees will be on May the 27th. Looking at other districts, you can see a comparison between Hazelwood, Lindbergh, Normandy has not done theirs yet. Parkway, Pattonville, Ritna, Riverview is not, we were not able to obtain it. Rockwood and SLPS and University City. You can see in all cases, those districts are starting on the 23rd. You can see that the winter break for Hazelwood is 12/20. Most of the districts will be 12/23 to 12/31, as ours is as well. Ours goes to the 2nd. Spring break occurs almost, it varies from district to district. Hazelwood is the 28th through the 4th to 4/1. Lindbergh, the 21st to the 25th, and you can see what the dates are. Ours will be similar to what it was this year, the 21st to the 25th. The end date for most districts will be 6/3, 5/7. You can see on some dates 5/24, for some others 6/2, 5/27. The number of school days varies from 171 to 176 as the largest. Ours is 174. A lot of that depends upon the fact that we are trying to get as many days for students as possible. The timeline, October, we begin this process with correspondence from teachers, union members to be included on the committee. December 2nd, we had 16 persons looking at the calendar. December 10th, the first meeting with leadership in the union to discuss the calendar. December 17th, the second meeting with the committee. January 29th, I reviewed the options with Dr. Knight. Final meeting with Local 420 on the 8th to review the draft calendar to be presented to the public, which is taking place tonight. This is the meeting to present it to the board. The last day to receive feedback will be to 26, which is really 2 weeks and 2 days. The public feedback will be reviewed and final recommendation presented for the board on the March 9th date. This year's calendar indicates 169 student days. The proposed 21-22 calendar recommends 174 student days. We tried to increase the number of student days in light of the fact that students, as I said before, have not been in school to the degree that we would want them in person, that is. Again, we're receiving feedback to the 26th. Internal dates will be included to determine how central office functions will be impacted by the calendar. And lastly, asking the board to approve it on the 9th. The board will receive, as they have in the past, all of the comments that come from the public, and I will be providing a summary to the board as well as publicly indicating what those recommendations might be. I want to go back one slide to look at the start date. Right now, the start date indicates 8/23, and we have 2 weeks of professional development where teachers will be coming back for professional development, 10 full days. If the governor makes any kind of tweaks in the calendar as he did last year, there is a possibility that we may come back to the board to shift some things as it relates to getting kids back in school as early as possible. Again, there may be some other strands of the virus that might impact the opening of school next year. So I think the 8/23 gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of what we might need to do based upon the two factors I just indicated. Governor's flexibility of starting maybe earlier and input as it relates to what might happen with the vaccine and also strands that might impact us over the next 3 to 6 months. I'll take any questions at this time that the board might have.
Dr. Adams, if we are able to start earlier, I know you mentioned that right now there's 2 weeks of prep. how do you anticipate that changing, that 2 weeks of prep for teachers? Would it just be shortened or, would it just be shortened or pushed up?
We would likely try to incorporate some of those days that we had throughout the rest of the calendar. We will reduce some of the monthly days. Normally, we would have possibly one PD per month. We will reduce that to 2 PDs per month, so we had PD earlier in the year. And so that is the reason, Mr. Lane, but we will likely go back and look at September possibly adding a PD day, November not doing so, but January possibly adding a PD day. But we will look to try to sprinkle some PD days throughout the calendar as opposed to front loading it in the beginning of the year.
I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
The question is in regards to the vaccination. I understand that there is a lot of controversy, in particular around teachers being bumped up in that category of priority. And so what does that look like here in the city of St. Louis or the state of Missouri as far as teachers are concerned? Because I'm sure that would make a big difference in what our attendance numbers are going to be when school returns, as to whether or not our teachers are going to be able to get that vaccination if they want it.
At this point in time, the teachers or educators are, I want to say 3C, but it's a third category. They have not bumped up teachers at this point in time. As you might be aware, Ms. Jones, and board and public, there's some real challenges about getting more vaccine available for everybody, not just teachers, but at this point in time, we have not been bumped up any earlier. I have no date. We are working with the health departments in the city to try to determine when that might be. I don't have any idea right now, Ms. Jones and board, when it might be, although we are having regular conversations. It is highly unlikely that teachers will be moved up before the elderly and before essential workers at this point in time. And every indication I have is that that will not be occurring. But we are hopeful that in the next 30 days or so, depending upon the number of vaccines that might be available, that teachers would likely be starting to get vaccines. But we don't have any definite information right now, Ms. Jones.
Okay, so the governor is the person that will determine whether or not the teachers are considered part of the essential workers?
At this point in time, I think the CDC makes some recommendations to to states, and states are taking those recommendations to determine what categories go next. So I don't know if it's the governor or the CDC that's making those recommendations at this time. But my suspicion is it's the CDC that's driving what states are following to do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Dr. Adams, I know we have or can you remind me what the required number of school days are?
So
Is it
the
180?
state switched from required days to number of hours.
Okay.
And so there are no required days anymore because 2 years ago, the state's new guidelines takes the number of days time hours. It could be as high as, depending on how many hours you have, 180, it could be as low as 160 if you have more time built into your schedule.
Okay, and we are at
174 days. And in terms of hours, I'll let you know in 1 second. Is it 1,122.3?
that's the one I'm looking at? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
1,122.3,
And the requirement again is?
1,044. So we have more hours than we are using right now.
Okay, clearly I'm going somewhere with this. Well, I wanted to talk about two things, and maybe this is a conversation for a later time, but since we are talking about calendar, I didn't want to bring it up to the board. I know that there tends to be some issue around voting days. So looking at the 2022 calendar, March 1st, and it would be a primary. April 4th would be a general election if we have them. And I guess we don't really, oh, and then we have November. So I don't know if we have a district policy around voting, if that's something that, again, the board needs to take up. I'm not asking for action on it now, but I think it would be good to solidify something, just to make sure that we are being cognizant of that. The second thing that, again, no action needed now, but would be, I think, of good consideration is a mental health day for teachers. And that's why I asked about where we were with hours. I think it would be beneficial. I know May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but honestly, I feel like October is when it got crazy. But having a day dedicated to teachers, that's not a PD day, that still is a paid day that they can take for themselves. And having that just universal. But I know that's something that we probably have to talk to the union about and consider. But since we are talking calendar, I think I would like to look for a recommendation sometime in the future or sometime soon about what that could look like in the future in those two areas. So a policy around voting and voting leave, and then also around giving our staff a mental health day.
Yes, sir. I'll just kind of indicate what the policy is right now. Allow employees to come in late on voting days. We allow some time in the morning for that to occur on dates that are voting. There is a requirement of policy for 210 work days. So I just want the board to be aware that 210 work days are required for as a part of our contract with Local 420. So that would be something that we would take into consideration as well. But I'm assuming, Mr. Lang, are you talking about this year's calendar? Or you want us to look at future calendars?
If we can do both, I don't
right.
see why it would be a problem.
Okay. I'll come back
And
with.
so I see the hours are 11:23. I don't see the number of days on this calendar.
You are correct. It's a policy. Local 420 is 210 days that they need to work per their agreement. Yeah, the hours are over to the right on the side.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Adams, follow up with what Adam said. Has the district done away with personal days for staff?
At this point in time, employees get 8 sick days and 2 personal days that they could take unfettered without any kind of pushback.
That's for a 10-month employee?
That's for a 10-month employee. 12-month employees obviously get vacation.
I have a question.
They also get the 8 days and the 2 days as well.
I'd like to ask a question, please.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Jones.
I'd like to concur with everything that my other board members have been talking about in regards to mental health days for our teachers, but as well as our students. But I'm hoping that the professional development or there's some kind of way you can bring people in to help the staff acclimate back into the classroom, because we've almost been through almost like a war. And we're going to have teachers to come in who are highly stressed, as well as our student body. And I'm just thinking that a lot of people within the district are going to need some mental health assistance because we've all been through a lot. And that seems just like not enough days to kind of get back into it. I understand that the requirements from the state, but I'm really hoping that you and your staff can be really creative in helping the staff and the students receive that mental health relief that they might need.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Jones. That is something that is why we're putting 10 days in the front. And that is why I also indicated I may be coming back to the board at some point in time for a possible adjustment in the calendar for this year. I also want to remind the board that we did extend the Thanksgiving week by 2 days for employees for that reason, because we knew that they needed to have some additional time off. So we will be sensitive to that, and if there are recommendations, we will obviously evaluate them. But I think your point is well taken.
Thank you.
Can you just share briefly about how the public will be able to provide feedback?
Immediately after this meeting, the calendar presentation and the calendar itself will be posted on the website. And the public will do as they have done in the past, be able to email as well as to send comments in as they have in the past. So it will be the normal process that we've done before. But they will have the opportunity to do what they're doing now for the board meeting, giving public comments. There are no other questions at this time. I'll move on to the consolidation update. I do want to indicate you received an electronic copy of the presentation. It has been updated a little bit with several slides added. I will email it to the board tonight. I made some updates after talking to a couple of board members about some changes as late as yesterday, and so I apologize for not including those, but I will spend some time on those slides and obviously send you a copy of it tonight. First of all, there were areas that I wanted to address. A recommendation was made that we would have some additional resources as a result of the consolidation plan. And so I want to kind of give the board an update around that and where we are in certain areas. From student recruiting, there were about 1,060 students who are being impacted by the school consolidation. We have made calls to about 62% of those. We've left messages with about 38%, and we're still following up. When this presentation was done as of last week, when you received it, the commitments made were about 40%. That number is about 50% today. About 22% are undecided at this point in time, that we're still working with families to determine where they want to go. What we're hearing is that we need more time, we need more information, those kinds of things. And they're working out their own issues in their own lives in terms of what they want to do. So we do have data that indicates where kids are going and that kind of stuff. I can provide that to the board at another time, or email it to the board as well in terms of what selections have been made. The second one is increase our school budget, and I can stop if the board wants me to stop at any point in time and take any questions, as opposed to waiting to the end, if that's okay, Madam President. Increase school budgets. Budgets are increasing by about 15%. And this is just a summary of some schools to show you what the allocation amounts might be as a result of the budget. All of this depends upon their student enrollment as the driver. The FY21 budget allocation, which is about 15% increase, and then the FY22 budgets. You can see that the numbers go from about $5,000 to $10,000 per school, depending upon the number of students in the school. And the factors that we use is about 15% is what the amount turns out to be. But every school will get an increase. That's anywhere between $500 and $600 additional dollars that are going to schools, in addition to the other things that I'll be talking about a little bit later. Student support services. This simply lets you know that from a counselor level, we have enough counselors to support what we want to do. We have enough nurses to support what we want to do in terms of nurses for buildings. You can see the breakdown. 50 SLPS nurses, 12 agency nurses, 3 BJC nurses. In terms of counselors, we have 2 more counselors than we need. So that would happen as a result of retirements and those kinds of things. So we don't anticipate laying off anybody. We think there will be retirements that will take care of that. Social workers, we didn't indicate we were supporting having any more social workers. What we indicated is that we will realign how social work services were going to be provided to tier 2 and tier 3 students. Security, we will need to hire 15 additional security staff, and we're working aggressively to do that. Family community specialists, we have, we have 2, plus 2 different, so we have 2 more than we need at this point in time, and so we would have to look at reassigning those persons again through retirements is what we would look at. And custodians, we would need to hire 54 additional custodians, which we are working to do on a regular basis. And so that lays out the support side and where we are now and what we are aggressively looking to try to do.
Dr. Adams, under security and custodians, those should be plus 15 and plus 54, right? Not minus.
That is correct. I
Okay.
apologize. Thank you for the correction. On support services.
Dr. Adams?
Yes, sir.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
the slide before, the bump up
Yes, sir.
for sticks, could you just talk about why that is?
Because
Is it
the formula before for sticks was that the pre-K number was like $115. We are making it all, I want to say 144. And so they went from like 130, everybody else was getting 130 to 144. Theirs was 115 because the majority of their students are pre-K. So that's why their numbers jumped so high, because we decided to do everybody, whether they're pre-K, first, second, and third, the same amount. So that is why their numbers jumped high. Thank you for noticing that. That's exactly what for Sticks and Wilkerson, their numbers are going to go much higher because we not only raised it by 15%, but we bumped it up a little bit higher for the pre-K number. For the core, is there a core? For the core elective courses, you can see what the variances are between electives from 236 to 239. You would say that there's not much difference, but you can see in green the schools that did go up by electives. It didn't change much for some schools because some of those schools are themed schools and they have a specific curriculum that doesn't align to the electives that were coming from the other schools. For advanced placements, you can see that the schools received approximately 11 additional courses for advanced placements. Central, AP Science and Spanish courses from Spanish and Science teachers at Cleveland. Vashon, AP Literature, Language, and Honors added with the new ELA teacher from Northwest would happen. Honors Math courses added from Northwest. McKinley, U.S. History, and I can go on, but we've gotten down a little bit more finite to what actually will be going to each school, and I have that data. If you want to find out exactly what courses are going to be added to those schools, we have that information. For this purposes, I'm just showing you numbers overall, but I can go deeper and tell you exactly what courses are going to be. The increase of additional elective courses. We're still looking at what might happen with Beaumont as a possibility, and that might also increase some courses at other schools, depending upon our ability to see how we leverage Beaumont resources if we make a decision to transfer the programs out of Beaumont to some of the other high schools. At this point in time, that decision has not been made. We're assessing exactly right now our ability to move it if we can move some of the equipment and resources from Beaumont to other schools at this point in time. But you can see an increase in green for the career tech education courses from schools that are looking to close. The next slide is on reading teachers, and this is where I added some more information. You can see what the primary focus is here in terms of the roles and responsibilities of the reading teachers, and I won't read all of it to you. You received a copy of this prior to this meeting, but you can see what the intent is here. What has been added is this information after talking to a couple of board members. Part of what we are looking to do, based on comments from the last board meeting on reading and also talking to board members, is to do some training with all of our staff around literacy. And the modules you can see that we're looking to put in place for all of our K-8 teachers, because every teacher should be a reading teacher, a focus around reading. So part of what we're incorporating here, which you don't have, these are the slides that were added, is some literacy, professional development, intense literacy professional development, especially early in the year for tier 1 and tier students, so that all teachers can be part of this. We're also looking at, on the next slide, what kind of literacy support will take place during the day. For tier 1 students, all students receiving high quality tier 1 instruction. And then throughout the day, pulling out students for creating some intervention time for those students who have the greatest need, and also some intervention time for students in tier 2 and tier 3 throughout the day. So there'll be some push in and pull in, not just by the reading teacher, but by other professional staff as well as it relates to the reading. Heard the comments about much more direct one-on-one support. And so that's what we're trying to address here. And in addition to that, looking at before and after school support for kids as well. Tier 3 students coming before and after school with additional dollars to pay for teachers to remain and support students one-on-one. So not only are students getting the support from the reading teacher that we are looking to provide, but we're also looking to provide professional development as well as in-school enrichment and support, as well as before and after school. And there will likely be a cost impact for the before and after school, but we think it's a worthy cost based upon the resources that we have to try to address that, with teachers spending time one-on-one in small numbers one-on-one to support students. Lastly, we're also looking at every student that is reading below grade level to develop an individual reading plan, such that we know exactly what the deficiencies are with students, and we are providing support to those students. And this is a plan that will follow the student in all of his or her classes. So it's a much more intense look at what we do around reading and how we are trying to address it, not just with one staff person, but a holistic approach to this big challenge that we have around reading. So we're calling those IRP plans, and every elementary school will be looking to put one in place to support students. That will be documented, that will be shared with parents, so that parents will also know what the challenges or deficiencies are. We're finding that parents are leaning into it a lot more as kids are at home to understand what the challenges are as well. And last but not least, how do we make this a community issue, not just a St. Louis Public School issue? So this notion of quarterly SLPS literacy series updates, such that we're making the public aware of where we are and asking them to lean in from a community perspective of how reading could become a priority in the entire community, especially as it relates to St. Louis Public School students. So I heard some of the comments at the last meetings, talked to a couple of board members. We went back to the thinking room, if you will, to kind of look at how we can make this much more holistic as opposed to just isolated around reading teachers. The senior work experience, lastly, but one of the things that we're looking to do is to provide internships for our seniors in the second half of the school year. We're thinking February, March, and April students will be outside of the building on internships, paid internships, while we cover the cost of the internships, or outside entities cover the cost of internships, because we can't pay them, and take care of transportation. Miller does a good job of that right now. CSMB does a good job of that right now. Gateway does a good job of that right now, but we're looking to do it with all of our high schools. Obviously, every student will not be able to benefit from this, because if they need a full class load and have to be in school every day, they will not have the opportunity to benefit. Looking at our data, we think the numbers are around 750 students, anywhere from 500 to 750 students will be able to benefit in this experience, but they will also get some training prior to. So they will gain valuable career exposures and also maintain paid employment beyond the insurance. Internships is one of the possibilities. And the board has seen this before, but I just want to do a little deeper dive. I talk about on this page the number of students that we're talking about. So 700, anywhere from 500, 700 to 1,000 SLPs will be eligible. I think the number is, quite frankly, 500 to 700, not 700 to 1,000. Students in the CTE pathway, students in the business employment classes, some of the schools I talked about already, seniors who are on track for credit, and seniors who also have an interest in this opportunity. We are working on an RFP for outside entity to support us in this area for a number of different reasons, but mainly because we also need to teach students the soft skills that need to be done. So in the fall of next year, students, you can see, will be part of a program to teach them the soft skills, to work on their schedules such that we can release them to do that. But this gives you a quasi timeline. We're a little bit behind in terms of the RFP. It should be completed by the end of this week, and the RFP will go out next week for partners to work with us. We are looking to hire an interim coordinator for this work experience. Students are going to be working on contracts in the summer. Again, as I said before, the fall, we want to make sure that schedules can allow them the ability to do this. And obviously, the experience will take place between February and April, with students getting prepared to graduate in May.
Dr. Adams, I have a question in regards to that.
Yes, ma'am.
So over the years, I've had the experience of, as a parent, of having my children involved in the work study program that you're speaking of. So is this something new? Because I remember we had a internship program where the kids would leave in their senior year and go work and then come back to school, that kind of thing, and they were paid. So is this a new agency or organization that's going to be taking over from like the St. Louis internship program? And there was another program, I don't recall the name, but I remember helping my children go participate in this program. So what's new about it now?
Sorry. In the past, Ms. Jones, it was geared towards schools like CSMB, which is brand new, Gateway and Miller, because they have a CTE pathway. We're not just talking about a CTE pathway. We're talking about any senior having the ability to do this outside of the CTE pathway. Right now, it looks like about 200 to 250 students are participating in the kind of experience. In addition to that, the students don't get paid right now. At least for Miller, they don't. For CSMB, they don't get paid. And from Gateway, they don't get paid. The internship program that you're probably talking about was a little bit different because those students actually had jobs there. And those persons were, and Beaumont was the place that it was coming out of, at least one of the schools it was coming out of. But the vendor, meaning the employer, paid them for this experience. This is one that we are looking to find dollars to pay them and hold them to a different kind of standard regarding it. So you are correct. This is not brand new. It has happened before. It was at a smaller scale with selected schools. We're looking at all of the high school students having the option to do this. This does not happen at some of our traditional normal high schools in any great way, but only those selected magnet schools were being benefiting from this, and only if you were in a CTE supervised business employment class, similar to what you see on slide 15. So we're talking about expanding it much larger than what it was before, and also providing a lot of soft training, if you will, in the beginning in the fall semester than it happened before. So it's not brand new, but it's expanded such that we can look at a larger number of students participating at schools that are not traditionally participating like our neighborhood schools.
Well, Dr. Adams, I remember we had a conversation last year with the St. Louis Public School Foundation in regards to college and career readiness. And my concern that I was asking them about training at least a couple of years before graduation, because a lot of our students they might not want to go to college, that kind of thing. And if you start earlier, just say when they're in their junior year, if they want to go into carpentry or become an electrician or whatever the case might be, then they would give them that opportunity. But if we're just going to wait until their senior year, the last portion of their senior year, that would kind of knock a lot of our students out. So, I mean, I'm interested in seeing our students that might not have the resources to go to a college to take advantage of their junior and senior year, getting a skill set before they leave St. Louis Public School. So where does that fall in?
So the CTE experience that you're talking about still takes place. The challenge is the students have to have a certain number of Carnegie credits such that they can be on track to graduate. And that's the real challenge around the junior year, releasing students out to do that kind of stuff. Normally it happens in the senior year, whether it's at this school, Miller, where we are now, whether it's at CSMB or Gateway. In all cases right now, it's aligned to their senior year because they have to have enough credits by January to be able to participate in these courses. We are still doing the CTE training. It's just that the idea of them leaving in their junior year for any kind of work, quote unquote, experience doesn't give them an opportunity to have enough credits to graduate. In addition to that, their ages may also be impacted, meaning if they're 16 or 15 years old, which is the age of many of our juniors, then they would not be, quote unquote, allowed to be in the workplace as they are right now.
I do understand. Yeah, I understand that. I really do. But so one more time, when will we have a technical school for North St. Louis and one for South St. Louis then? Because a lot of the students, they really don't want to just go and they want to go to a technical high school. And I know Gateway has a lot of skill sets and Miller and that kind of thing, but I mean, I don't know. I just see that we are missing a lot of students that would come and join St. Louis Public School if we had the technical school in North St. Louis and in South St. Louis. And we
I
weren't
think,
waiting.
yeah, I think, Ms. Jones, that would require likely a bond for the public to support such an effort. I'm not against it at all. I think it is a great idea. I think it's just going to be costly, and the board would have to make some decision that they want to convert, I would think, convert one of our high schools or create a new high school that would do that exclusively. As you know, the North Tech facility is well resourced, meaning there's a lot of money that's been put into that facility, and it is state of the art. So just to build it and keep it up takes a great deal of resources, and I think there's some targeted dollars for that purpose. So I am not against at all entertaining the conversation with the board about some targeted bond for that to take place.
I really hope that happens because our students deserve that, because it seems like there's just a particular school, just like a school over in Central West End, they get more funding. It depends upon who and where you are, if you're going to get that. So I'm really hoping that our North St. Louis schools and South St. Louis schools get that opportunity to flourish in that manner. Thank you, Dr. Adams.
You're welcome.
Dr. Adams, two questions. One, is this opportunity paid? And then two, have we cultivated partners both for the training and development of the students and also just housing students in these jobs?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. You said, is this paid? All right. The intent is that it is paid from February through April. Yes, that is correct. Secondly, we have started some conversations with the business community, Mr. Lang. We don't have commitments right now. We are putting out an RFP, and that will be the purpose of the coordinator and the vendor that we're looking to hire to assist us in terms of securing those kinds of opportunities, and quite frankly, setting up a system where we could monitor and mentor kids in those environments. So we have a long way to go. It's an idea right now that we are working feverishly on, and we have approximately a year from now, we are hoping to put this in place. That's why we didn't try to do anything this year. But yes, we are working on everything as relates to this, and obviously the coordinator will come before the board in closed session like they always do for personnel matters, and the RFP, once it's let out and approved, the board will be approving whoever that vendor might be. So there's ample time for the board to lean into any kind of concerns they have around those two things.
Thank you.
The last item is the virtual school, and again, I won't spend a lot of time here other than to say that we are contemplating a K-8 virtual school. I'm not going to read through all of this. This is a lot. That will be the turnkey for virtual instruction. Right now, as you know, we're doing it among 68 schools because we had to do that. But the intent would be if a kid is at XYZ school and they want virtual instruction, instead of that happening in an elementary setting, it would be at one isolated school that's doing that. The intent is that one of the buildings that we're looking to close will stay open for the purpose of doing that. We talked about real estate a little bit tonight in closed session. And we would likely look to one of the buildings that we discussed tonight for that purpose is kind of what we're thinking about right now. But it would be a K-8 virtual environment with a full-time teachers for every single grade. There is a possibility of more families, one virtual, that we might have to have two. That's why the size of the building is going to be important. Kids will not necessarily come to the school. They will do everything virtual, but have a teacher in front of them as they walk through the virtual curriculum. I also put on page 19 some of what that curriculum would look like, and this is just some ideas that we're looking at that might be in place, what a schedule might look like right now for synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And lastly, what the high school program would be. And for the high school program, we would intend for the students to be taking courses virtually from any one of our schools to make up their schedule as opposed to one isolated school. as it is right now, as it would be for K-8. The last thing I added here was the notion of including a planning committee to work with us on this. Again, this was a recommendation, suggestion. And so we will be looking at our PAC committee, some university partners over the next 3 or 4 months as we put this together, and not do it in isolation as we have been doing before. Some university partners might be Maryville, WashU, Project Lethal Way, Girls Inc., Little Bits, or We School, Cygnus, and other partners who have indicated that they might want to be interested. PBS right now, that has worked with us in the past when we went into the pandemic mode and we were providing some television videos for families to do at home. So the long story short is, you've seen this before. My intent is not to overwhelm you, but this is going to be posted to the website. So it's really for the public to look at to see what we're doing. But what's added here is a component of engaging the community in a greater way around the planning of it before it's actually turnkeyed into a real program. That includes the presentation for tonight relative to consolidation, and I'll take any questions that the board might have at this time.
Dr. Adams, I kind of saved my questions, one, because I couldn't push the button to speak, but I have some questions on a variety of subjects, and I'm trying to go through them quickly. On the virtual program, I'm not sure if I understood it well, and maybe later it'll be more clear, but are we talking about hiring new teachers to run this or use the current teachers?
Current staff.
Okay, you're going to use current staff.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So right now what we're thinking is that we will interview teachers who are normally doing a great job in virtual, and instead of that teacher being at Miller, and I'll just use Miller as an example, as an English teacher, that teacher will be transferred to that school that's only doing 100% virtual, and a new teacher face-to-face will be doing face-to-face instruction in Miller.
Okay, that's what I was
Yes,
clear.
ma'am.
Those teachers will be separated to
Yes,
do
ma'am.
their, okay, that's
Yes,
what I
ma'am.
was
In
trying to
one
find out.
building, strictly doing virtual. So the
Yes.
whole building will be virtual. No kids will come in,
Okay.
but teachers will be there. Their rooms will be set up with all of the accoutrements of the technology that they would need, and they will literally do all of their teaching from the screen like we're doing now, with kids who are at home with iPads and computers.
Now, how will you handle PE in the virtual program?
Right now, it's happening virtually. Kids are
Oh,
actually doing PE. They're standing up and running around. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, my daughter is a PE teacher in California, and that she has 150 virtual kids that she's making do PE at home with their screen on so they can do it.
Also, for students, for the program, for the work program for the seniors,
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question because I know this was something that did exist when I was in high school, is that if you found your own job, you could still get credit, high school credit for that, and it was a paid job. And I remember I sponsored 3 students from Clyde C. Miller as an employer. And one of the students, you know, our place wasn't quite what he wanted, so he found his own job. And because I still keep up with that student, who's an adult now, he graduated many years ago, he's actually in that field. Is there going to be an opportunity to for students to find their own jobs that fit their career goals?
The
get credit?
intent is that we try to match them with what they want to do, and if they are able to come to the table with their own job, the answer is yes, yes. And quite frankly, Ms. Fowler, it is our hope and belief that some of our partners will actually look to pay students as if this is their employee.
And then I want to really applaud you guys for the adjustments you made to the reading program. I mean, that was something that was really important to me, and I've been talking about it since the last meeting with my husband. But what you guys have done to me is exemplary, and I really appreciate you guys going back and adding more to it because I think it's going to really help students a lot. And then a few more questions on the budget dollars that you presented. Are those school budgets to be managed by the principal?
Yes,
or-
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Strictly 100% their budgets.
Okay. And then the nursing, you have a reduction of a nurse. Will that reduction be a reduction in agency or a BJC nurses or someone hired by the St. Louis Public School?
We have nurses on a regular basis retiring, so
Okay.
I would suspect it might be a combination. To be honest with you, we may not lay anybody off. There may be an extra nurse when other nurses go out sick and those kinds of things.
Then the last question I have is regarding AP courses. At some point, I'd like to know how our students perform in AP classes. And the reason I want to look at that is because if we're offering AP classes, but they're not passing the test that actually transfers to colleges, my question is that the right place to put funding? Because obviously you could take the class, but if you don't pass the class, it doesn't, move, you don't get it transferred to your college, the college you attend.
What I like to do, I think that's a really excellent question. One of the challenges that, and I'll come back with a full report regarding this, is even if they pass the course and get a 4 on the AP exam, don't take the course. And so we have some real challenges in this space. But I can give you a report in terms of where kids are. At the end of the day, it's about increasing the rigor for kids. So the test is important, and then passing is great. But it's really about teaching kids how to really take rigorous work and do well in rigorous work. Yes, the byproduct, as you said, is obviously getting credit when they go to college, so they won't have to take that course over again. But I think the real byproduct is kids work really, really hard, and they really work with rigorous work. They could transfer what they learned there in courses. But I'll give you a report in terms of how our kids have done on AP and what universities don't. Some universities don't even take the courses even after they make a 4 or 5 on it. And I could use Metro as a prime example of some universities that have not taken the AP courses.
Okay, I mean, it's very helpful. I know both my children, got out of a whole semester of class because of AP courses. And so if they can find those schools who do take them, it's a real help to parents, especially if you're paying for college.
Yes.
So, and then the last thing I wanted to say was in terms of the technical school, I agree with Donna. And just for history's sake, the school that is Gateway used to be O'Fallon Tech and was our technical school for the city of St. Louis. And I had a couple of siblings who actually went there and still use some of those skills today. So I think it's something worth exploring.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Could you talk a little about how central office staff are working with and supporting the school staff to, I guess, best leverage those budgets, or how to incorporate these changes for next year?
We haven't had a conversation with principals yet. We are really, really early in terms of the staffing piece. It is our intent to have some conversations with principals, through the network superintendents, to provide some guidance on how those dollars could be leveraged. So that is yet to be done yet. It is our intent to do that. Quite frankly, schools are really have done an adequate job of spending their own budget. Where the conflict occurs sometimes is when they're trying to get district dollars to do something, but they manage their dollars quite well and spend them for the most part. This is probably an outlier year. We try to assure that they spend 50% of their dollars by January, such that they're not leaving dollars out there to spend. Again, this is a different kind of year because kids have just gone back to school on January the 11th. But I don't anticipate, quite frankly, any issues with schools. As a matter of fact, we may even come back with a little bit more increases to the school's budget, depending on how our budget looks.
Well, I'm sure they can find a lot of things to spend it on. I was thinking more about how is that coordination happening between central office and the school these are significant changes, and just how is that workflow happening?
We have not, frankly, had, we have a principal meeting on a monthly basis, and they all have been by Zoom, obviously, as you can imagine. And so we have not had a deep dive conversation with them. We will likely be doing that. We were waiting for the school consolidation decision to be made, but we will be meeting with principals, not but the following week, to walk through all of the things that I just kind of talked about, but we just haven't had the chance to do that. We are all also contemplating small in-person group meetings like what we have now with no more than 10 principals, to let them ask the kind of deep questions that they need to ask. I have a listening session with elementary principals every Friday at 10 o'clock to listen to what their concerns are, elementary only, because they were the only ones face-to-face for the most part, to listen to all of their concerns. And it's been very productive to listen and respond to what they think they need to have, and for me to try to make sure that support takes place. So there's some avenues open, but we are going to increase those avenues not until the last week in February.
This is Natalie. I had a follow-up on what Regina was asking. about AP classes and other electives in general. How are we gauging the interest right now? And are we going to make budget and program adjustments to these new curriculum as they come out? If we find, that 0 students want to take a French class, would we maybe shift resources into something else? Or do we have kind of a plan for how we're going to make sure we're actually spending resources on things that students want and need?
So, high school students have the ability to select their courses for the next year. Obviously, we haven't done that right now, but these will be courses added to their selection sheet. So we'll know before we go home for the summer if there are 0 students wanting to take French, and then we can pivot moving that particular teacher somewhere else. So we will have the ability, because at the high school level, they do select the courses. They meet with their counselors. Obviously that's going to have to be by Zoom to determine what courses they want to take next year. And if there are not enough numbers in a particular course, we'll look to move that course somewhere else.
So then in that case, it would be replaced with something else later that students could then partake in?
Yes, ma'am. It all depends on what they want to take. And if we have the certified staff to do so. So we'll be making some tweaks to try to see what they want. But we have also talked to principals, and it seems to be at this point in time, these are electives that they believe that their kids will want. So we didn't haphazardly move these things to these places. We did meet with principals. The network superintendents did on a regular basis to kind of ask them what they thought they wanted based upon what they have historically had requests for from schools over the last few years.
Got it. So it sounds like we do have some leeway to make sure everybody has what they need and really actually tailor curriculum to the students. So that was my concern. Thank you for answering that.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Adams, I know we have transition specialists or transition team for the schools that have closed consolidated. Is it possible to get some qualitative feedback from them on what they're hearing from families, what they think is going well, what have been challenges, what have been factoring into families' decisions and the choices that they're making? And I want to also say I don't want it to be something where, especially for the families, that they're hounded for this information. And I'm using that term loosely, but not that, because they have a lot of stuff to do right now and decisions to make, but just as they've been supporting families, just to hear just what is top of mind for them and has been key in how they've been supporting this transition, I think would just be beneficial for this board to know and this district to know.
Yes, sir. I receive a report once a week. I can share that report with you. I had this conversation with Dr. Roberts. We had a similar conversation, and I could give you the devil in the details in terms of how many kids are going to Magnet, how many kids are staying in the district, how many kids are leaving, and the feedback they're getting from families. But I have a full report that I could give you by school and an overall number as well that I could share with you, Mr. Lang, as early as tomorrow. And I'll share it with the entire board. I just didn't want to put it in the public arena in this meeting, but I will gladly share that with the board. Of the 1,060 kids, I do have a report.
Thank you.
I have a question, please.
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know, when do we survey our students, or when do the counselors have the conversation about what a student might want to, what kind of career or where they might want to go when they enter into high school? What do they want to do? Because I don't recall getting a lot of services during the time that my children were in school to ask them what would they like to be when they, entered high school. When does that happen?
We normally do an A-grade inventory. It's called a interest inventory in the A-grade. And then in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, counselors meet with them about the courses they're going to take the next year. Frankly and honestly, at the high school level, the numbers were limited. They take a certain number of courses based upon what was offered. The electives and the CTE will give them a greater opportunity to do that. I can't tell you if that happened last year because of the pandemic. I'm almost positive it didn't happen. And I don't know how we're going to manage that this year, Mrs. Jones. But traditionally, we do an A-grade survey or inventory for kids, and then the councils meet with 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students to determine what their course requests are going to be in the spring semester. I'll give you an update after this meeting from Dr. Bender and Dr. Knight to give me the intel in terms of what we've done last year and what we're going to be doing this year as it relates to that. But I know in the past, pre the pandemic, that's what we did. I just don't know what we did last year, and I don't know what we're planning this year to try to get to every kid based upon the fact that they are only 25 to 30% of students in schools right now.
I'm not sure, but it seems like, was Dr. John Wyndham in charge of bringing in Career Day, or I'm not sure who was in charge at that time, but they brought in lots of different people that the students could observe and talk to about various careers they might become interested in. So how would that happen, especially during a pandemic or what have you?
It is, if it's happening at all, Ms. Jones, it's happening virtually. I honestly would, I'll have to get back with you on that as well. I know there were career days. At the high school level, I know they were doing, getting 9th graders to try to select magnet schools by doing a virtual one. I just don't have enough information right now to tell you about what we're doing around career kind of activities right now in the virtual environment. Dr. Bender is my point of contact, and I'm positive that she's listening to this, and I'll get a report tomorrow to share with you because I just honestly don't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If no other questions at this point in time, thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. There are, I believe, 6. Are there any that you would like to take separately?
Madam President, there is one item I would like you to take separately, if you don't mind.
Sure.
0209-2103. It was increased from 281, I think it was, to 500,000 for moving. At the time that this was put in, we had not closed any schools. And so after, obviously, understanding that we are closing 6 schools or 7 schools, we wanted to increase that budget for moving because we believe it's going to take a lot more to do the moving. So you could take that one separate since it's a cost increase.
Great. Are there any others to take separately? So I will move that we accept items 0209-2101 through 0209-2102. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion on those items? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts? Yes. Ms. D. Jones?
Abstain.
Ms. Bowell?
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins?
Yes.
Motion passed.
I move that we accept item 0209-2103. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I just have a question about the budget increase. We have those in our operating budget to handle that increase.
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts? Yes. Ms. D. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Bowell?
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins?
Yes.
Motion passed.
I move that we accept 0209-2104 through 0209-2106. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts? Yes. Ms. D. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Bowell?
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins?
Yes.
Motion passed.
The next item on our agenda is the moratorium on new schools. So I made the edits that Susan suggested last week or 2 weeks ago, and I sent that out to you ahead of time, but I will read it as I know we have other people who don't have it in front of them. Whereas the population of school-aged children ages 5 to 19 decreased by 18.6% between 2007 and 2018. Whereas the public school system in the city of St. Louis includes both traditional district schools and charter schools. Whereas in 2007 through 8, there were 103 public schools serving 60,642 children, and in 2019 to 20, there were 110 public schools serving 49,939 children. Whereas the local, state, and federal support for school choice programs continues to create a system of schools and programs that fight over a declining population of children. Whereas St. Louis Public Schools has closed schools and continues to face the challenge of future school closures in order to best serve the current student population. Whereas the city of St. Louis needs a citywide plan for education to ensure the public school system provides a quality education for all kids all the time. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the city of St. Louis supports a moratorium on new school openings in the city of St. Louis until a comprehensive citywide plan for education is developed. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be delivered to the members of the Board of Aldermen of the city of St. Louis and other local and state elected officials to encourage discussion of and action toward the urgent need for the development of a citywide plan for education, and to encourage the adoption of a resolution in support of a moratorium on new school openings until such a plan is developed. Comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I make a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion at this time? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Vowell?
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Ms. Fowler, you have I'm sorry, we don't have it printed, but the updated mission and vision for approval.
Yes. Two changes were asked to be made at the last meeting. One was to use the official name for the Board of Education, and the other was to take out the word govern in a place where it was redundant. So the final draft of the mission statement reads as follows. The Board of Education of the City of St. Louis will govern to ensure students are fully prepared to be competent and valuable contributors to a global society by ensuring students are provided with innovative and high-quality public education. And then the final draft of the vision statement is the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis will govern boldly to ensure students in the district meet and exceed local, state, and federal standard achievement levels. We will advocate for collaboration with community organizations, organizations, political leaders, and businesses in our region to provide students with innovative and high-quality educational experiences.
So I think ideally we would have a motion for the mission statement and then a motion to accept the vision. So we'll do them as two separate votes, I think makes sense here. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the mission statement as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there questions or discussion on the mission statement? So I will share, I will be abstaining from the vote on each of these for the same reason, which is I think it is dangerous for the board to have a different mission and vision than the district does. I recognize that I may be the only one that feels that way, but I do think the distinction between the board and the district is just dangerous territory to be in. And this would put us in the only district that has a separate mission and vision in the state. And so those are my concerns, and I will be abstaining. Other questions or discussion?
Regina, or anybody that worked on this document, would you speak to
why this document why this should be enforced in our board?
Well, really, it was a discussion that you guys were having before I came on the board. So I think in my first meeting that this discussion was had. And it was because there seemed to be confusion on what our goals were as a governing body, what we would focus on. And so we agreed that we would bring about, have a committee to help focus our governing actions based on a common vision and mission for ourselves. It doesn't mean that the district can't adopt our vision and mission, but because the vision and mission starts with us anyway, because we are the board. So, you know, the idea is that whatever mission and vision we set, we would see those common themes in the district itself. As a matter of fact, I think we had a presentation from Dr. Adams that included these very words. So us starting the process is not so odd. And when I took the training, actually, it seemed like everybody in my training session seemed to have some kind of common value statement about who they were and what they were going to do, whatever they called it. But they thought it was important for them to gel together first before trying to lead a district. So this is what this does. It gels us together as we go forth to lead the district.
Thanks, Regina.
And to follow up on that, I've made it a point to review school boards around the city and across the state. Kansas City is the urban district, and they too have a vision and mission statement. We are not colliding with the leadership of the district. We're simply saying that we are here advocating for kids in the simplest way possible, and it aligns with what the district is doing.
Yeah, I would add that and I know I've said this before, but I'll reiterate. I think the mission and vision for the board is just how we see ourselves showing up to do this work. And I think the work of the district is, while it is aligned, I don't see them as separate or too different. I just see them as aligned and not necessarily one leading to another, but them working together in tandem. There are things in terms of district operations that we don't do and is out of our purview, but are necessary for us to govern. So I'm really bad at analogies, but I'll go ahead. It's like if you have an auto shop or you have Ford, it's making the cars there's a vision and mission for the quality of the car and all that stuff and the production of it. And I think like then managing the business itself and the operations in the shop. I feel like it's part of it and those two should be in line. But how you see those things coming to fruition in those different spaces, I think that matters. And I think for us, there needs to be a vision or an end goal or a ideal of how we see ourselves doing the work of governing, which leads to the ultimate mission of the work of educating students and preparing them for life.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments on moving this document forward. I think I agree with both sides. Dorothy, I understand your side, and team, I thank you for the time that you put in, and I understand what you're saying. But one thing I want to make sure that we are keeping first is having more productive conversations around our children and less conversation using this time like for professional development or just like personal things for like board members. So while these documents are great to have, you know, we've had a code of ethics and other documents in the past and actually utilized it on our board. They've just kind of stayed there. So I'd be interested in knowing and showing the world that we create.
I think that's an excellent question because the goal of this document is to actually have it moved on to the, I think the governance committee. And having sat on that committee as well, trying to come up with what this new code of ethics will be to actually answer those questions on how we're going to handle ourselves to make sure we do the best for the kids. I think we struggled on what our guiding values will be. And I think this sets that in order so that we can stay focused on our main thing, which is the education of our children. It keeps us focused because you say, what do we really agree to be? We agreed to be advocates for our children, and so that we don't have all these code of ethics and other governance documents that really don't address that. So.
I would add, I think one thing that we can do, I know we, again, talk about the goals for the district, but I think we can have goals for a board as well, and those goals line up to the vision. So that's a great question. Like, how do we make sure that this is enforced? I think we set goals around our vision every year and say, all right, well, if it's in our vision to be strong community advocates, what is our goal for this year? It might mean secure 3 new partnerships or reach out to 3 community partners that we have contacts with and pull them into the fold and get them a meeting with our superintendent or get them to present to a board on something. And I think that would lead to us being intentional about the vision.
Yeah, I think you're saying exactly where I'm going with that, Adam and Regina. And I'm sorry, Joyce, I know you're about to say something as well, but making sure that when we approve documents on this board, that we also align it to SMART goals and making sure that we have something to measure it against. So like, how did we do in 2020? Now we're doing better in 2021. So making sure that what we're doing, we're doing it in purpose, basically.
And I think too, I'm sorry, Dr. Roberts. I think too, we may have to, as we do, as we become better governors of the district, we probably have to sit down at least once a year, if not more, and say, okay, this is what we said we're going to be. Let's do an evaluation of our performance, because I think that's important. And I think when I got on the board, there seemed to not be any cohesion in terms of what we believed was right for the district. And I think when we do this and hand this off to the governance committee, part of that, the governance committee job is going to need to be, how are we going to evaluate ourselves and how often will we do it? And what are we going to base that evaluation on? And I think the mission and vision is the beginning point of evaluating ourselves to see if we're effective.
And Regina, you echoed my sentiments exactly. We have to hold ourselves accountable. And one of the ways of doing that is completing a self-evaluation.
Further comments or discussion? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Bowell,
Abstain.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins,
Abstain.
motion passed.
Is there a motion for the vision?
I make a motion that we accept the vision statement as previously read.
I second.
Questions or discussion on the vision? Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Bowell,
Abstain.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Rhodey Collins,
Abstain.
motion passed.
The next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics. Natalie, are you presenting that? Or do you want to move it to a future meeting?
I think it would be probably appropriate to postpone that until the March meeting, unless you're comfortable presenting. Regina did step up in my absence and ran the last meeting, so I'll leave that to her.
Yeah, Natalie, to be honest, I think now that we've accepted our vision and our mission and vision statement, I think we need to go back to make sure that it actually aligns with that vision and mission and everything we put in there, because we were operating these two committees as separate and distinct. And now that we're handing the vision and mission and vision statement over to the governance committee, we need to make sure that everything we present, all the documents we present are in line with one another. So I think holding it off would be good, and us having another meeting to really challenge ourselves on whether or not what we've stated in the code of ethics meets our mission and vision statements.
Thanks, Regina. So with that, I would move to postpone the Code of Ethics vote until the Governance Committee has had a chance to review the new mission and vision and align that to the Code of Ethics work that has been done.
Second. Questions or discussion? Ms. Bell.
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. Vowell,
Yes.
S. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Rhoda Collins,
Yes.
motion passed.
Is there an update from the ad hoc budget committee?
Yes. Are we in committee reports now? So the ad hoc budget committee met on Friday of last week. We have one more meeting, not this Friday, but the Friday following. And that will probably be our concluding meeting. So we had a discussion about, well, I'll start first with the original purpose of the ad hoc budget committee. So the committee was started to look at budget to be able to analyze or get some more information about what our district budget looks like, how we involve the community in our budgeting process, and ultimately if there was a need for a committee going forward that looked at budget equity, budget transparency within our district. So the committee felt overwhelmingly that there was that need. So we spent our last meeting talking about what would be the proposal for a standing committee, what the purpose would be, what the goals would be, the committee makeup, and then a motion going forward. So we're in the editing phase, and we will have a final presentation for this board at our next work session, and then we'll have some language for approval or a motion for approval in our next meeting, if our timeline stays intact. But just to let everyone know the updates right now, the new name of the standing committee would be the Standing Committee on Budget Equity and Transparency, with the purpose of what the committee's responsibility, the purpose would be to understand and analyze the district's use of funds and budgeting processes at the district and building level for overall effectiveness toward the district's mission and equitable funding of schools in collaboration with the St. Louis community, increasing transparency and community involvement. As of right now, we have about 5 goals for the community, which will turn into 5 tenets. And they're going to be tenets instead of goals, so that the committee can set goals every year around those tenets. So right now, before edits, the tenets would read as follows. So tenet 1 would be to increase budget and finance transparency. Tenet 2 would be to develop equity-driven budget protocol with the district finance department. 3 would be to effectively increase community input and involvement in the annual budget process. 4 would be to increase education and awareness of district finance and budget processes. And then the 5th one would be to advocate for state and/or federal changes to the funding formula that benefit districts that serve historically underserved populations, such as ours. So that is where we are right now. The intent would be for a motion to go forward that would allow for the ad hoc committee to turn into a standing committee under this new name, purpose, and these tenets. And that would be effective immediately. In terms of things in the interim that need to happen, Dorothy, thank you for bringing up the language that we have right now around our policy for creating standing committees. So that's something that we're going to look into, take a legal lens with it, be able to update that or bring an update to the board for that to make sense and make sure that we're all set to go moving forward with our proposed motion. So at this point, I'll take any questions that you all have.
Adam, I really like what you've brought up so far, and it's not official yet. your committee, is it made up of people outside of the board?
Yep, so I can answer that. So right now, we do have a committee makeup section. So it'd be for preferred participation, parents, a finance, budgeting, community member living in a historically under-resourced or uninvested area of town. Right now, we have parents, former parents, community members. We have a school principal and 2 board members and a union member as well.
Very good.
And the superintendent and the Ms. Banks.
Okay. I just have one other question. At a previous meeting, I talked about, because I know we have an audit committee and we have the budget committee, and I just wondered, had there been any, Dr. St. Omar, had there been any discovery on whether or not the budget committee can this new committee can kind of also handle the audit review and things like that? Or do they necessarily have to stay separate, or since it's all finance related, can they incorporate that job under the new committee if we choose to have that?
So I think I can answer that. So they have completely different purposes. And this standing committee would meet more frequently than the audit committee does. And the audit is really more to make sure that we're spending money in the way that we're supposed to. This is trying to give recommendations or do some community work, do some deep diving to give recommendations to the board about how we make our budget process more equitable, transparent, and community driven going forward.
Do you think adding that as a one time per year thing would kind of distract you guys from what you're trying to do if you just add that one piece? Or?
No, I don't think that. So in being in both committees, I don't think auditors have this lens, and I don't think this lens would be helpful for an audit.
Well, the audit review committee, all we do is review the audit results and make sure we're in line with, accounting principles and everything's is okay. Everything is done above board. To me, it seems very related. It doesn't have to be. This is just a suggestion so that we won't have so many committees doing different things. And since you guys are going to be focusing on budget and then you see the final actual results, are there any discrepancies that you might find in what actually happened versus what you plan to happen? And I thought maybe they fit neatly there because you have the people who are looking at what should happen versus what actually happened working together.
So I would say the tough part is the fact that when the auditors are doing their report, they don't have an equity framework to it. And that's one thing that we did talk about in our committee, like what does equity look like in a district such as ours? And so being able to define equity is probably define financial equity and what it would look like to this district to achieve budget equity is probably going to be the biggest lift of this committee to start. And I just don't see those two worlds, and Ms. Banks or Dr. Adams, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see those two worlds colliding seamlessly. I think if we got to the point where there's some recommendations coming out of this committee that will affect how or what audit results would come out, then I think it would make sense for them to overlap in that sense. But I just see see them being different.
Okay, I'll hold off on this until maybe after you guys operated a year, and so we could reevaluate whether or not it makes sense. Right now, it may not make sense. So let me see you guys operate for a year, and then I'll bring it back up if I think it makes sense. Okay.
Thanks.
This is Natalie. As someone who has previously served on the audit committee, I just wanted to kind of give a little more context there. It's kind of a different group of professionals that makes up the committee itself versus the group of professionals who make up the budget committee. So when you're looking at these two different purposes, there are two different lenses that as Adam mentioned, that are being viewed here. So there's really more of the strict financial background in the audit committee, and then there's the real equity-based, community-based strategies in the budget committee. So trying to mesh those right now, I think would be difficult.
And I'm fine with that. I don't agree with you on that, having been a certified public accountant and having run both these committees at several employers. So I don't agree with it, but I do think to really establish itself before changing any focus. So I do financially focus and being able to evaluate the budget, what you want to happen, whether it's equitable or not, and what actually happened is really important. But I definitely think the committee needs to get up and running before changing any focuses at this time. And for that reason, I pulled back that suggestion and we'll reevaluate in a year.
Adam, I have a question for you.
Go ahead, Donna.
Oh, okay. I really appreciate this committee, I think, because I'm not sure, but I think I want to ask if it's possible to add a student component to your committee. Would that be too far-fetched? Or because I've always been interested in, I'm trying to understand why we don't teach personal finance in our school district, or, you know, to help our students appreciate what a budget is and how we come to the numbers and how they figure in, and so that when they graduate, they can graduate with a portfolio and they can understand accounting, Ms. Fowler, they can understand monies and how it's spent on them and how to spend it. So I'm just really hoping that perhaps your committee could involve some students as well to just to add a little flavor to that, to help.
I think that's a pretty good idea, especially when we think about discretionary funding in schools and the fact that I believe most, if not all, of our schools have student councils that do have funds that they can spend. So having an awareness of the budget and budget process would help. I can definitely bring that to the committee.
Thank you.
Is there an update from the governance committee? Are there any other committees that have updates? We'll start with board member reports. Susan, do you want to start?
No, but I have a question. Well, I have a comment, actually.
Sure, go
Would
ahead.
that be okay?
Yes.
So I was just thinking while we were talking, a creative way that we could also hold ourselves accountable, perhaps, moving forward when we vote in certain documents would be to, just like we just voted in our new resolution tonight, perhaps we say that after this ties into whatever pillar for SLPS. So for instance, this specific resolution would tie into objective number 2 of pillar 5 or something like that, which would support using data to improve instruction and decision making for our students because of these certain facts, to make sure that, because one of your concerns was, you know, this vision and mission is different from the district. So in order to tie those two together, to keep credibility and to also hold ourselves accountable, we could tie it to the pillars that we as a group did commit to pushing forward in the district. Just a thought.
So do you have a board member report?
But no board member
Okay,
report.
no,
That's it.
that's
Thank you.
Joy?
I wanted to thank my fellow board members for allowing me to participate in the student focused governance cohort being sponsored by the Council of Great City Schools. And it begins next Friday and Saturday. So thank you.
Adam?
I'm all set.
Regina? Donna?
I don't have a report at this time, but I do want to clarify something very quickly. When I spoke to Adam about the personal finance class, what I'm really asking, I've been asking for a long time if we could have a financial literacy curriculum K through 12. And because I believe our students need to graduate with a financial portfolio. And I do understand that it is required by the law to have personal finance class, but I'm just hoping that we can get a little bit deeper into the weeds with that. So that's what I meant. And I'm thanking Adam for his committee. And no, I don't have a report from the pension board at this time. They meet on Thursday.
Thanks. So I have two things. One is just an announcement of a community event that I came across that I think is in line with a lot of things that we talk about as a board and as a district. And it's a symposium with the Washington University Department of Education on February 17th. It's a Zoom symposium from 7 to 8:30 p.m. They are hosting Dr. Noliwe Brooks, who is a professor at Cornell University. And the title of it is called A Killing Cure, Education, Segregation, and the Meaning of Health When Black Communities Disappear. She is speaking in conjunction with Dr. Amber Jones from Harris Stowe, Dr. Jerome Morris from UMSL, and Dr. Michelle Purdy from WashU. A district parent was involved in bringing Dr. Brooks here, and she has done significant research around education and segregation and some things of that nature. So I will pass that along to the board, but I would encourage anyone to participate as well. It is open to the public. The next is I just wanted to give you a heads up of some of the content that we will be talking about at the next work session. So as you may know, I am not running for re-election. Susan is not running for re-election. So if the election certification kind of tracks the same as it has in the past, beginning at the April work session, there will be a need for new leadership on this board. So we will be talking about the onboarding process, bylaw updates. There are some kinds of, just as Adam was mentioning with the standing committee, there are some things as it pertains to board officers, board elections, committees, some things that just need to be pulled into alignment. It will probably be a multi work session discussion. So I will ask if there are things that you have identified that would be necessary for the board to address around kind of a succession plan or transition of leadership. Please let me know. I'll be working with Mr. St. Omer and Dr. Adams to kind of make this a cohesive discussion, but I would welcome any feedback that you have into that. And like I said, it will probably be a number of things that need to be voted on and changed. As you know, our bylaws are from a long time ago, and there are also, to add an additional layer of difficulty, many state statutes that pertain only to this board. So just trying to even all that out. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Of course.
On the February 17th session, what time does that start again?
It's at 7. It's a
7,
Zoom
okay.
symposium.
Okay.
Yes, I'll send you the link.
And then on the second thing you brought up about you and Susan, are you guys saying that you're not running for office anymore on the board or running for the board anymore?
I'm saying, do you want to go ahead?
I'm not running for my seat again.
So
Okay.
there
My
is
seat is
a
open.
school board election that is happening in April. There are 3 seats up, and I am not running. Susan is not running, so there will be a transition that needs to occur. Yeah.
How long have you two served? I just want to
This
know.
will make 8 years for me.
Okay,
So this is the end of my first term, so 4.
4 years. I see.
Natalie, I think, has a board member report.
Yeah, I just, it's a kind of personal. On January 29th, I achieved my happiest accomplishment since serving on the board. And that was giving birth to a future SLPS scholar. My son, class of 2039, has joined me for his first public meeting today. So I wanted to thank the board over the past 3 years for covering for me for my medical absences as I traveled through the country for fertility treatments to see specialists. And a huge thanks to SLPS staff for making virtual participation an option for me before the pandemic even hit. So, and also thank you guys for the flowers. That was really sweet. So I just had a personal announcement and wanted to say thank you to everybody who kind of helped along in this process.
Congratulations, Natalie. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make the motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Bell?
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. Bowles,
Yes.
Ms. S.
Yes.
Jones, Ms. Rhodey Collins,
Yes.
motion passed. I never said that no more.